What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking, commenting, and all of that. And if you're wondering why I have towels behind me, it's because I'm in a bathroom. That's why. I wanted to do it outdoors, but it was way too windy and way too muffly, and it just wasn't going well with the noise, and that's why I'm sitting in a bathroom telling you my story, guys. So this is the story time of my son. There was a question that was asked in my previous video about, you have a son? You're a mother? Yes, I do. So let's begin. So I did write some notes down so I don't go all over the place, because when I usually tell stories, I usually begin in this certain area and then I end up in whoop whoop land because something else comes into mind and I'm like, oh, I need to tell this. So I wrote notes down so the story makes sense. I will not be mentioning any names whatsoever. I won't even be mentioning my son's name. It will all be kept confidential, and like I mentioned before, if you do know the names of those involved, please keep it to yourself. And again, if it's not your story to tell, don't tell it. Let those that are in the story tell it the way from their perspective. So I think that's really, really important. I've prayed about this, and I also asked my mum's permission to tell my story and to just see how she feels, because I really feel that a woman's approval is really important, and she is one of the most important women in my life. And so it was key for me. So I did say, Mom, what do you think of me telling the story? She's like, yeah, go for it. Go ahead. So I was like, okay, I will. So here I am telling my story. So the title of my story today is My Son. All right, guys, so let's get into it. So I don't know how all these story times go. I haven't really watched many story times, but I'm going to just tell it how I feel I need to tell it and how I would like to tell you guys. Let's get into my story time. A while ago, I was about 16 or maybe 16 years old. I met a guy through a family friend who was much older than me. I met him, long story short, I was kind of encouraged to kind of like, flirt your way into trying to see if feelings are mutual between this guy. And being as young as I was, being as silly as I was, and let's be real, being as stupid as I was, I went for it. And so I kind of just let someone else's opinion and whatever influence my action towards this guy. And so after that happened, it appeared that I guess feeling was mutual, I guess you could say. And then we sort of, I don't even know how it kind of begun or started, but then we started dating and secretly seeing each other for about a year, or like about a year or two. So let me just say, if anything is done in the secret, it will always come to light. Let me just throw that in there for you. So dating for like a year or two secretly was probably the stupidest thing to do. So after that, we kind of had a discussion, and we discussed, me and the guy, we discussed, okay, maybe we need to speak to our parents, like where is this going, blah, blah, blah. And so we decided to speak to our parents. So I wasn't there when he approached my parents about it, so he went by himself and I was at work. And he was telling me, and after that, I guess my parents were quite not upset. I think they kind of knew, but they just never wanted to approach me about it. So for him to approach them, that it was very kind of like, okay, seeing as he approached me, then I guess, yeah, okay, it's official. Denise and this guy are together, and as long as we know, then there's nothing wrong with that, and it is okay. So after that, after we approached my parents about that, probably a year into our relationship, after telling my parents, I fell pregnant. Yes, I fell pregnant right after, or a year after, having that conversation with my parents. Bow, 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 bow. Oh my goodness. Really, Denise? Really? I found out I was pregnant, and when I found out I was pregnant, I told him over the phone. Like, I mean, I'm sure people do that, but like, I'm thinking like, what was I thinking? Like, I told him over the phone that I was pregnant. And I remember sitting on my bed. And telling him, like, I did a few tests and the test came back positive. We are so dead. And whew, yeah, so I told him over the phone, and we both were I was freaking out, obviously, and we were both shocked about the whole surprise. And the first initial response that he had given me was, I don't actually know if it was the first response, but I do remember in the midst of having a conversation with him over the phone about me being pregnant, he mentioned to have an abortion. Or I don't know if he mentioned to have an initial abortion, but that was a suggestion that was given to me to have an abortion, because we obviously, I was still young. We both weren't ready. And well, that's kind of the reasonings of what he had given me in terms of why I should have an abortion. And I don't even think he finished saying the word abortion. I was like, no, hell nah, not going to happen. Like, I don't care. Like, right that moment, nothing meant more to me than that child that was inside me. So I was like, I don't care what you say. No, it takes two to tango. Whatever the consequences are going to be with me falling pregnant, this is our child, and I'm not going to have an abortion, and that's that. It's full stop. That was the unexpected news that we had received straight after telling our parents about a relationship. Telling my family, well, my parents, obviously. My siblings were quite young, were still very young, so it was my parents that I obviously had to tell. I was quite petrified. Oh, excuse me. I don't know how to explain it, but my heart was about to stop, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was petrified telling my parents. And so how that happened, how I told my parents about my pregnancy, was, again, the stupidest thing. I just, when you're that young, you're just not thinking. But because I was so afraid, so afraid of what my parents were gonna say, a work colleague of mine, who is also a family friend of my dad's, found out about my pregnancy, and so he approached me about it, and he kind of offered to speak to my parents about it. And being as naive and dumb as I was, I took the offer and said, sure, if that keeps me alive, please talk to my parents about it. And so he did. And again, that was the silliest thing I could have done, was to allow someone else to step in to speak to my parents. Like, imagine how, like, embarrassed, imagine how, like, frustrated my parents were, knowing that there's news that my daughter has to give, and it's come from a work colleague, a family friend, and not by my own child and the father of the baby. Like, yo, you know, like, it's just kind of like, it's crazy, it's ridiculous. Like, I can't even, I feel sick just thinking of what my parents had to go through as this family friend of ours was telling them the news. And I can't recall how I was approached by my parents in terms of once the news had reached my parents. I can't remember how they kind of addressed me about it, but I just remember the sheer disappointment in their eyes when they had, I was 18, so I just remember the sheer disappointment, the anger, the frustration. I can't remember how they approached me about it, but I do remember that I was there by myself. So the father of my baby wasn't there with me when my parents called me to address this whole situation. And so that also was kind of like, my goodness, what am I doing? Like, it just, can it get any worse? Can this get any worse? It can't get any worse than this. Like, okay, your 18-year-old child is pregnant. You approach their friend, a family friend, to speak on your behalf because you couldn't tell your parents yourself, let alone you and the father of your baby couldn't tell them yourself. Imagine dang, man. Whew. Imagine what your parents are feeling. And I just remember the disappointment and that look that your parents give you. I do not like that look. And I was just like, and I just had no words. I kind of just sat there and took it all in, like, well, now what? You know, now what? And so obviously after finding out, life continued. But it continued on, but it was not the same. I lost my family's, when I say family, I mean my parents' trust. I lost their faith in me. And I guess obviously the relationship between us was broken. It was kind of like, you know, and being traditional, cultural, you know, it's a disappointment. You're not married, you know, you literally just told us you were dating someone and now you're pregnant by him. And so yeah, I always feel like it's always kind of hard for a parent to take in when you come from a culture, or just people in general. People talk, you know, people talk a lot. And I think that's the whole upsetting thing about it all was, yes, okay, your child's needs, your child's well-being is definitely key, is the most important, but there is no doubt that in the back of your mind there's always going to be, oh my goodness, we are going to be the talk of the whole town. The whole of Samoa's gonna know, the whole of Sydney. You know, it's like kind of like not, but that's how it comes off. Still, the father of my son didn't come and sort of visit my parents and kind of like address the whole situation. I basically had to sort of sit in every family gathering that happened to address it all by myself and with my parents. And so yeah, regardless of whether they were happy about the whole situation or the whole thing, it still didn't change the fact that my parents, my mum and dad, were still very upset about it. And I think that was the most important, just how my parents had felt about it. I didn't really care about what anyone else said. But the fact that my parents were not happy about it, that was enough for me to go, oh, I just can't. Like, the disappointment and everything was just, it was a bit unbearable. But still carried on. The father of my son's family came to visit and address the whole situation, but still no father in sight. And I was kind of, I had to be in the midst of it and kind of just, you know, take it all in. It is what it is.
And I can't even remember if I don't even know how I kind of dealt or felt about that all, but it was what it was. Despite both families being aware of my pregnancy, me continually living under my parents' roof, the father of my son not being present at all, whether it was coming to see my parents about it, whether it was coming together with his parents to see and address the whole pregnancy situation. It was kind of like it just wasn't working. And so my mum was finding it still very hard to accept the whole situation. So because of that, I ended up moving out and into one of my auntie's place. So I moved out and lived with my auntie during my pregnancy. And that was probably one of the hardest part of my pregnancy, was not being at home and being with my family. So I moved into my auntie's place, and I continued working while I was pregnant. And I didn't have my license back then, so I had to catch a lot of public transport, as well as walk to and from where I needed to be, whether it was to work, whether it was to my auntie's place. I had to do that all throughout my pregnancy. And even in the dark nights, my auntie worked a lot, so she was kind of barely around. So I did a lot of things on my own while I was living with my auntie. And so even in the dark times when I had to walk from the station to my auntie's place, there was just this long road that I had to walk in the dark, like pitch black, like no joke, no word of lie. I would walk, and I wasn't even afraid. Like, I walked from the station home and nothing ever happened to me. Like, it was never, I would be afraid. I would definitely be afraid, like petrified. A pregnant woman walking in the dark doesn't look too good. So while I did that, I did still continue, I guess, communication with my son's father. So I don't know how that kind of still happened, even though he didn't come see my parents. But yeah, I guess we were still in communication with them while I was living with my auntie, and he would visit me. But even then, I don't think I actually told my parents that we were still in contact, or even told them that he was visiting me while I was at my auntie's house, because they wanted nothing to do with him. And again, being as young as I was, I did not listen. So he would visit me, and just, I guess that kind of gave me a little comfort while I was living with my auntie, and it gave me a little bit of strength, I guess, to continue on with just pushing through with where I was, how I was doing things, and just taking it literally one day at a time. And yeah, I remember I had to, while living with my aunties at my auntie's place, it was dark, and I must have forgotten my key or something, and I had to climb through the window while pregnant. The window was luckily open, and this was late at night, and I had to climb through the window to get into the house, because I don't know, but I think my auntie must have been working really late, and I didn't want to disturb her. I don't like to be a nuisance to anybody, so I will try to figure out how to do it on my own before I ask for help. So finding a window that was opened, I was like, well, look, I'm just gonna climb through it and hope for the best. And I just remember that night after I climbed through the window, I'm like, what am I doing? And then I remember just always crying myself to sleep when I was at my auntie's house, and just feeling, woo, I hope I don't start crying now at window, and just being in a place that I felt so kind of like, just, this is just not where I'm supposed to be. And I remember crying at night and just being just having feelings of being lonely and just out of place. And because my auntie had worked crazy hours, she was rarely at home, and so I had to buy and fend for myself. I had to buy my own food and, you know, make sure I had nourishment and whatever, and look after my unborn child as well. And I remember one of the doors in her house just wasn't closing properly, so I do recall having a fridge that would have to be placed in the front of it, because and just going to sleep and hoping for the best, and literally just going to sleep petrified, like scared out of my brains that no one's gonna just jump in and kill me and my baby. And I still went to sleep. I still managed to go to sleep through the fear and just scared out of my brains, the feeling that I had. And so I still kept in contact with my family while living with my auntie, and I would visit them as well, and that would be me actually walking there and catching public transport, pregnant and stuff. But it just wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same anymore. Little did I know. So living with my auntie wasn't working out. It really wasn't, and I was struggling. I was really struggling doing it by myself and just not having my family around. Then I found out. I can't exactly recall how I found out, but I found out that the father of my unborn child had also gotten another woman pregnant. And I literally can't remember how the news got to me, but it did. And it kind of made a lot of sense, because during the period of me staying at my auntie, I think we kind of lost communication. We just stopped communicating. I don't remember how but I eventually found out that the father of my unborn child had also gotten another woman pregnant. And so I would tell you how I felt about it, but I literally can't remember. I legit can't remember how I had felt once the news had broke that someone else had been pregnant by him. And obviously I probably would have been really upset, angry, and all of that. But yeah. And then since me receiving that news, communication between us was dead, finished, kaput. So like, it was literally done. I was like, okay, that's it. It's just me and my son now. It's just me and my baby. After the news broke out and everything, my family eventually reached out to me, and they then asked, I think they kind of just requested me back to come back home. Like, it was kind of like, I guess it really must have just hit them really hard. So they, I don't know how it came about, but they asked me to move back home and to come back home after that news had broken. And so I did. And that was probably one of the good things that had come out of finding out that news of another woman being pregnant, was the fact that I was able to go back to my family and move back in with my family. And with that being said, I thank my auntie that she was able to take me in, and I love you, auntie, and thank you for that period, that time, because it really it taught me how to fend for myself and to be strong, and that I can do it, pregnant or not. I can climb a window, pregnant or not. And it really it taught me a lot. So I thank you and I love you so much. And so moving in back in with my family, I was still, the news of it all still was lingering. Still, I was hurt, I was angry, I was confused, I was frustrated, I was scared, lonely, and all of that, and every other emotion I guess a woman could feel once they get the news of another woman is also pregnant with the father of your son. But that had never, ever stopped me from pushing through to make sure that my baby was healthy, my baby was well, and that it's probably, you know, all women who have fallen pregnant or just carried a child, there is a strength that comes with it, despite the pain that you feel and just everything that comes with carrying a child. There's a strength that comes with being pregnant that actually pushes you to keep going, to despite whatever's going around. So my baby, having him inside me, gave me strength, and that was all that literally mattered. Like I was like, okay, whatever. I think I may have been about 6 or 7 months pregnant when I found out that news. And so I moved back home with my family. I made it clear to my parents that me and the father of my baby, we were absolutely done. Like there was no communication, no nada. Like this time I'm serious. Like before, maybe I was lying and I was still secretly seeing him and communicating with him. But after that, I was like, no, seriously, there's just nada. Like he's moved on, I'm about to move on, and that's that. And so I went to all my doctors. I continued going to all my doctor's appointments by myself via public transport, and continued working and just continuously pushing myself to take each day as it came. And I even through pushing and through going through that, I remember, oh Lord, I remember I was in the train and I must have been really lightheaded that I actually fainted. Like I fainted sitting down. Like I was dizzy, and I felt so dazed that I think it was really hot in the train, and I was sitting next to someone, and my head just literally just went like, it went like that. And then I remember just as soon as that happened, I had to pick myself up, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I hope no one saw that. And I think when I had done that, I pretended that I was actually going to pick something up, but I was actually fainting. Like I actually fainted for literally a second, a half a second, and came back to life. And it was like, whoo, okay, I'll be fine, I'll be okay. And I went to work even after that, and it was just, yeah, it was crazy that I managed to pull myself back up. In amongst all of this, being as young as I was with no maturity whatsoever, there was definitely a lot of toxic ways I had reacted, and kind of like how I had taken in the news. And you know, the first reaction you get is, I want to hurt someone, you know, and if I can't physically hurt someone, then I will verbally hurt somebody. And so I've done a lot of stupid things, and I'm just thinking of it now, I'm just like, dang, you were so lost, you were so, you know, the enemy was makwai, you know. And so yeah, just thinking back of it kind of makes me sick. Like I want to vomit, like, yeah, I just want like that. And so, oh yeah, it was just really bad. But yeah, was me going back home. So up until the decision. So up until this point of finding out I was pregnant, moving out of home, moving back into home after finding out the news, still going to work, pushing through despite nearly fainting, still pushing through everything that I was going through. And so I was like, this is me. I'm gonna raise my child the best way I can, and as long as I have my family along with me, that is all that matters. Until a suggestion was presented to me, and that the suggestion was, what do you think, or how do you feel about giving up your child for adoption? So that also was never anything that had crossed my mind. So when it was presented to me, I was like, that was, I actually literally cried some more. And my first initial response was, no way, I'm not giving my child up to no stranger. No. And so we left the suggestion up in the air, kind of just like, we never went back to the conversation. But I knew it was going to be something that was going to be brought up again. And at this point, now being a single mum, I guess you could say, I slept on the suggestion, and I guess I thought about it a little bit more. And so I talked to my family about it. They tried to be as sensitive as they could be to the whole situation. I was probably 19 years old now. Are you ready to be a single parent? Are you ready to raise a child in this world? To be honest, probably not. So the suggested parents to my child, they visited me. And they pretty much asked me the question. It was more of, we would love more than anything in this world to raise your son up as our own. And that's the way they had approached me about it, the way that it was presented to me, is how it helped me make the decision, because it really gave me peace. It really gave me reassurance that this could be the best decision that I will make, apart from having my child. One of the best decisions I would make for a better and even greater life for my son. I was willing to give up my child for them to raise, and love just as their own. And at first, as they asked me and kind of like, addressed me about it, I was hesitant. I was like, oh, I don't know. I just really don't know. I remember crying. I think it was crying like I couldn't breathe, crying, and just tears were just flowing, and all sorts of emotion was going in my mind, hesitating to respond. But somehow something in me there was just something in me that trusted their approach, trusted their hearts when they were asking me about my son. And so I said, yes, I am willingly going to give you this responsibility to raise up my son just like you would your very own. Just like this child is coming out of you is how I believe he will be raised. And so that was when the decision to give my son up was made. And so it begins. So once I made that decision, I moved straight in with my son's parents. They took absolute care of me. I felt literally right at home. Like I was like, man, dang, like I could get used to this, and they started buying all kind of things, all kind of items for my son and for his grand arrival. And they had everything all set and ready. They were extremely happy and extremely ready to welcome him into their family, into their arms. And so that gave me great reassurance that the decision I was making was for the best. Maybe not the right decision as such, or but it was certainly for his best, for the best. And so I remained living with them up until the day my son was born. January 17th, 2009. My mum and sons, and so my mum and my son's adopted mum was in the room with me when I gave during labor. It was definitely one of the hardest and most toughest times of my life, giving birth. But knowing my mum was right there beside me made it all well worth it. And it gave me strength knowing that my mum was beside me, and it gave me courage to pull through it. And she really gave me just strength, knowing that my mum was right there beside me, despite all the pain I had put her through, despite everything, the disappointment in her eyes when she had been giving this news. Having her beside me was one of the really it's just like, whoa, it was just like crazy amazing. And I love her so much for it. Knowing that she was beside me was just remembering it, I'm just like, wow, God is so good. God is so good. So I gave birth. My son's adopted mum cut the cord. Mum was there, breathe. And I remember saying, Mum, I'm hungry, I want to eat. And she's like, you can't eat. And I was like, yeah, I don't care, I'm hungry. But just having her beside me was seriously definitely one of the best moments of being in that delivery room. And I guess the second was hearing my son's cry, just him crying, and he was just the most beautiful little boy. Like, he was so precious. And you know how when babies come out and they're all bloody and like wrinkly and stuff? He literally was perfect. Like, he came out perfect. Like, I don't care what or how you picture babies coming, but he literally came out so perfect. And he was so white, so chubby. He had such sweet little eyes, and he looked very chingy. Anyhow, I will say that when he was born, he did come out looking exactly like the father. Like, he looked exactly like his dad, and I was like, well, at least I know who the father is. So that was interesting. And so I continued living. I stayed with my son and with his parents at their house after I moved out of the hospital. I left the hospital, stayed with my son's parents, and then after that, once he was settled and everything was okay and I was okay, I moved back in with my parents. And the love that was radiating towards my son from all who were around him and who visited him in the hospital was just surreal. Like, it was just crazy, the love that was being shown despite everything, the chaos, despite whatever it was that was going on behind the scenes. It was surreal, and I really remember that, and I'm really thankful for that. And I'm thankful for those who had visited him, who have prayed for him. And yeah, it's just, he was definitely born into an amazing yet dysfunctional family, but despite the circumstances, he was absolutely loved, and loved during my pregnancy, loved throughout my pregnancy, and loved right after my pregnancy as well. Happily ever baby boy. So after my son's adoption and making that decision, we as a family made the decision that his biological father was not having any access to him at all, despite him not really making an effort to want to see him. It was kind of like, no, it is what it is. He has no say in his life, and that was that. So, but that was for my son's own protection, and it was whether he knows it or not, it was really to protect him. Leading into them having to move overseas, we still remain in contact. I would visit them, and they just were so you just can see the love that they have for him. They love that they will continue to surround him with through it all. So he has just turned 10. He's 10 years old as of this year. Oh my gosh. Can't believe he's 10 years old. My goodness. It's a lot of years. He's 10. Like, I'm telling this story thinking he's like 2, or thinking he's like 2 months old. He's 10 years old now. Such a big boy, and looks a lot like, probably a lot like me. Or, well, CJ says he looks a lot like his father, but with my attitude. Yo, I don't care. But yeah, he's 10 years old this year, and happy birthday. I love you. I love you. Happy. Should I sing happy birthday? Nah. So yeah, so every decision of my son's life, I gave it sole responsibility to his parents to make. So as soon as he popped into the world and kind of we made that decision, it was like, okay, this is the decision I've made. This is your son. This is your son to raise. I will respect whatever it is that you choose to do, and that's how it's going to be. And so I remember being pregnant, and then I remember his mother asking me, like, do you want to name him? And I said, no, it's okay. You choose, because this is your son. You choose his name, you choose what you want to name him, and I will respect that. And he has the most beautiful name. Like, yo, like, he is our king. Well, he's more of a prince, legend. So yeah, and so I gave that decision to both his parents to make, and just knowing that, I guess my greatest joy, my greatest joy is being able to serve God and allowing God to use me in whatever, you know. But another thing is knowing that my son is growing in love, knowing that he's growing in love, in strength, in assurance that no matter what comes his way, he is not alone. You are not alone. So clearly, for things to get better, it had to get worse, which it did. And the brokenness within my family was still definitely there. And I moved in and out of home because of just not seeing eye to eye with each other, and just little bits and pieces, you know, when something's broken and it's not fully dealt with, or we just don't know how to deal with it, the core of it, it's still gonna cause an issue, and we just continue to butt heads. So I moved in and out of home after the pregnancy, and I could have really easily just up and left my family without returning back, but deep down, I knew that my family meant way too much for me to just up and leave, like just way too much. And so I knew that they cared, but they just didn't know how to show it or express it in a way that is going to make me understand that. And so I continued to hold on with whatever I could and whatever I had left in me. So I continued to still be there, but even I kind of went through my rebellious, as if I wasn't already rebellious enough, my rebellious ways, and just was partying and doing all that, and it really didn't change anything. It made it worse, you know. After, you know, you think like after falling pregnant and doing all that, what's the worst that could happen? And so you just decide to party and party some more. My family. Thank you for standing by me, for standing with me through it all, despite the circumstances. Thank you for loving my son the way you do. I didn't know what family meant until I had stepped into JFC, which is the church I'm currently attending. Not currently, that I'm attending. Story time for that in another time, guys. Yes. So stepping into JFC allowed me to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the values, into the morals, into the importance of family, and that is how I was able to grasp what it means. And for me personally, one word that describes my family is dysfunctional. Dysfunctional, and I believe that every family has their own definition of what dysfunctional means. They're some worse off than my own, but this is me, this is my family. And dysfunctional means despite the dysfunction of it all, I know that it's only by God's grace that allows us to function the way that we do. And he's really just restored so much brokenness that had occurred during that season of my pregnancy, of my pre-pregnancy, of my post-pregnancy. He's really just worked in so many different ways, and I thank my family for just standing by me. And my mom especially, like, she's just such, we are so much alike in so many ways. But thank you, and thank you, and thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And so being the eldest, I had obviously set a really bad example, but that won't stop me from believing for greater and better for my family and for my siblings and for my nieces and nephews and sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws. Believing for an abundance of greatness and better for my tribe, for my siblings, and that they will. So thank you, and thank you. I love you guys very much. I often don't say it much, but it's okay. That's why you need to watch my vlog so you can hear it. One was forgiveness. Forgiveness was a big part of moving on. In order for me to find forgiveness towards the father of my son and all that had transpired leading into having my son, I needed to first understand and recognize where true forgiveness comes from. And that's just me. This is me, guys. This is me. And once I had found that, or maybe let's just say once forgiveness had found me, I was able to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself, therefore leading me into forgiving the father of my son for what had happened. And so I have forgiven him. I have forgiven the father of my son for what had happened, because I was able to forgive myself. But I was able to find and recognize and realize where true forgiveness had come from before I could have moved on to the next stage and the next season after that. Whew, that is my release. Release it in Jesus' name. Take it away. It's all yours. Forgetting isn't easy. It is not easy. But knowing that we both created life together makes me smile and say, yo, yes, that is our son. And our son is going to change the world. Like, he's just going to make it better. Like, he's a miracle child. And forgiveness is an inner healing process. It really comes within. It's an inner healing process, and it starts with the healing process of forgiveness happening within you or within us, and with forgiveness in my heart, I say thank you. Thank you for our son. Thank you for my son. Thank you that because I have been able to find my worth and find my strength and find my true love in the midst of all this chaos. And that's what forgiveness does. It really just like, it gives you new perspective. It gives you like stuff like that you would have never ever really thought about unless you really dug into recognizing, realizing and receiving that revelation of what forgiveness is. We can say thank you. We can say, yo, without the chaos, without that, I would have never been able to come and reckon and realize what true love is in the midst of chaos. And in Romans 3:23 it says, for all have sinned, and that we all fall short of the glory of God. So be encouraged by that, and be encouraged that to seek true forgiveness. It's not just kind of like, yeah, I forgive you. It's not that. It's much more. It's deeper. There's a root to it. There's way more to it than you think. Moving forward, I move not by my own. I don't, no way. But I move with God by my side. And everyone's like, yeah, no, seriously, like for reals, like for reals. I move not by my own, but I move by God, with God by my side. And it definitely hasn't been an easy move. It's never been easy moving forward, but with the pain of it all, I've been able to grow in more ways than I could have ever imagined. And moving forward doesn't mean that I have forgotten my past. It personally means to me, it means for me that I've been able to own my truth, owning my truth and allowing it to bring out the greater in me. I could have probably easily just been like, well, I've been in pain, I'm just going to sleep with the next person, whatever, and do that. But I've been able to own my truth and bring out and allow that truth to bring out the greater in me. And if we choose to just dig, and just pile, if we choose to dig over the top of our truth and just kind of just, push it aside, eventually it will be brought to light. No joke, like for reals. And if we aren't ready, then it will do some serious, deep damage if we don't learn and acknowledge to own our truth and let the truth be greater and bring out the greater in us. And so, it says in Philippians 3 verse 12 to 14, the Message version, focused on the goal. I'm not saying that I have this all together, that I have made it. That's not what I'm saying. But I am well on my way, reaching out for Christ, who has so wondrously reached out for me. Friends, don't get me wrong. By no means do I count myself an expert in all of this, but I've got my eye on the goal, where God is beckoning us onward to Jesus. I'm off and running, and I repeat, I am not turning back. And so be encouraged, guys, and I pray and I hope this story time has been able to encourage you and get a little bit more deeper into who I am and how I came about and my life. And so be sure to stay true to who you are. Don't forget where you come from, and to live your life. Don't just exist. So that right there is my story time for today, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking, I don't know how long this story time is going to take, but yo, I pray that it touches your heart, that you will be able to grow in ways that is uncomprehendable. So thank you so very much for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, and do all of that. If there's someone that you haven't made amends with, pray for them. I mean, yo, I still have people that I'm just like, but yo, it is what it is. Just keep moving forward, keep doing you, and just leave it all into God's hands. And yeah, God bless. God loves you even more. So yeah, love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. God bless. Say your prayers. Peace out, fam. Peace out, fam. Cheers.